Well, good afternoon. This is the Hound Dog here, and it is the 30th of April 2017, and I would like to bring you a summary of the May WebBot report by Clif High. This is the front cover, and I would highly recommend that you go to his website, halfpasthuman. I will leave the link down below in the description box, and go pick yourself up a copy of the WebBot report. I have never seen it less than 30 pages long, and it is absolutely packed with relevant information. And in fact, I'm finding more and more that whenever I see an interview with Clif High posted on YouTube, I tend to go over there and take a listen to it, because he talks about such a wide variety of topics. And I just can't believe how knowledgeable this man is. I have an incredible amount of respect for his intelligence, his integrity, his honesty, his empathy. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough of Clif High, and I very much recommend that you go to his website. $15. Actually, it's when it works out with the conversion, it's $20 in Canadian for us Canadians up here. And anyway, here we go with the summary. And of course, it is a grey, rainy day, which is a wonderful opening for Your Planet Changes Faster. When in doubt, look about, give a shout and listen, or you risk list and lout. From an old sea chant, which were the rules of thumb for staying alive and progressing across the fluid part of the planet. Rain, rain, rain. It's talking here of rain in the sense of cargo cars, of rain being repeatedly dumped on our heads. The way that flooding has dominated the weather reports in past years and was then replaced by winds, we have now a new rising descriptor set for rain and rain train as being the primary supporting set for Terra Entity over the rest of this year and into 2018. And I'm sure that just about all of you have noticed, although there are places that are actually going in the opposite direction and they're getting less rain, but certainly I've noticed the increase in cloud cover over the last few years. Now, there is an interesting documentary. I will link that down below, and also I re-uploaded, and this is the Great Cloud Mystery by Dr. Svensmark, Heinrich Svensmark. Brilliant. It's going to really enlighten you as to how the cosmic system works and how it affects our environment in a very real sense. A majority of all the rain sets are also linked across to the lakes in the sky dumping on our heads, sets from previous Alta reports. In the new rain train sets, we find that the noise and the immediate damage sets are going to be claiming our attention initially from the rain train experience. The noise is forecast to being so noticed as to create its own memes, with people recording sound levels and reporting sound trigger devices to be acting wonky. These sets also have the sound being responsible for whole towns going days without sleep, and the lakes in the sky continue to pour down the rain train experience. Other sets have the immediate damage being described as just that level of damage that comes from rain falling. These sets include damaged paint, paint peeled off, antenna damage, roof destroyed, and other sets have people and things being knocked down by pouring rain. Record snow all through the summer. Yes, record snow for summer in the northern hemisphere, and then in the longer term data, record snow and new glaciers form for the summer southern hemisphere 2018. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen the news in Canada lately, but in Calgary they got a recent snowfall about a week and a half ago, and they're very concerned now about the planting of crops. The East Coast, Newfoundland, they're talking about snow that will be hanging around till the mid to end of July this year, before it finally all melts. And of course, this weekend we're going into May, and there is freezing rain in northern Ontario, snow in parts of northern Ontario, and we have a +4, cold, damp and miserable day today. So yes, I can definitely see what's coming down the track here. Both record summer snows and record winter snows, as well as volcanoes, are showing up as being a dominant theme across this northern hemisphere over the remainder of 2017 and beyond. These data sets are still accruing longer-term data types at a steady pace. The descriptors have many new place names such as Rome and several other southern Italian cities as being snowbound in winter and suffering problems to excessively rainy and then rapidly hot weather patterns prior to a harsh and cold winter. These descriptors are suggesting that the raining river in the sky will continue to dump waves of rain along its entire length while spanning a continent for several weeks, an entire continent for several weeks. The data sets have this rain event being barely noticed among the rest of the odd weather planet-wide. However, the social impacts are described as severe and life-changing for those who live under the river, as you can imagine. The data also has descriptors for the impact of the continuously raining river in the sky on businesses, especially transportation, both transportation, both terrestrial and airborne. The details are describing people moving out from the rainways in such numbers as to create new phrases to reassign meanings to language. Such forecasts include seeing the light, as meaning seeing out from under the edge of the river in the sky, to both travellers and residents who will be leaving the oppression of the continuous rain as well as the constant grey. In spite of all the rain, rain, rain language, some of which is in supporting chains for new glaciers, there are many new sets for bands of sudden and deep dryness. They are also going to be accompanied by drought conditions and rapid heating. These sets have the intensity at the perceived level of sunlight being burning, heating and damaging, all within a few minutes of direct exposure. There are many cross-links to the global pop for these sets. The data for solar damage includes not only humans, but now references to ice masses at the poles. The datasets have both the South Pole calving and large ice masses, only to be upstaged by a clustering of large numbers of icebergs across the northern seas. The datasets have the Atlantic Ocean being very difficult passages, with many reports and videos coming out over this summer, northern hemisphere, and well into the next 2 years of icebergs in large numbers. There are several sets for shipping accidents. Now, I just read an article the other day and they were talking about having to reroute the ships because the record number of icebergs now are flowing much farther south and into the shipping lanes that are commonly used for trade routes. These sets have the local military being called out to bomb and blow up the icebergs before they block ports. The idea from the data is that the iceberg will be gouging the underwater profile, causing problems for cables. Yet more problems for shipping both across water and airplanes are showing up as sudden icing incidents. In several of these sets we have tons of ice being referenced as accumulating on metal in minutes. These sets also have reference to ice storms on the ocean as the winds become increasingly unsettled across much of the northern hemisphere. These sets have waterspouts acting as sources of drawing up water that later comes back down in the form of ice storms in the mid-ocean. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the global population. Yet more long-term data about rejuvenation. Please note the word means return to youth or recovering youthful vigour. These sets do not specifically include the beauty impacts of rejuvenation. Rather, here we are specifically referring to new youth or longevity, and other language that goes to both increased lifespan as well as increase in health over the lifespan. In these sets we have new data that ties directly to our Antarctica discovery sets from this and previous ALTA reports. These new sets have anti-aging in the return to youth sense being a rising mean, with a near-term peak in August 2017 as the data discusses several new treatments for aging. Well, I think we're all looking forward to that. Oh my God, if, you know, I'm sure I'm not the first person who has thought, wouldn't it be nice to go back a few years, certainly with the knowledge and information that you've learnt through the passage of time. What's that old saying? Youth is wasted on the young. Ain't that the truth? The data has rumours being caused by the appearance of sudden youth, as well as the denied stories of facelifts and stem cell injections. These sets are saying the public does not buy profit explanations, and that big headaches are created for the power elite, as well as the entertainment celebrity elites, as the public begins clamouring for the rumoured secret fountain of youth. The data sets have many people attempting to take advantage of the fountain of youth frenzy, and as a consequence, many more people will become involved in medical emergencies and fatalities and other bad body experiences. The data sets have some countries and regions that will enact laws with serious harsh penalties for fake rejuvenation materials, nowhere more than in China pop. Many of these sets have the China population reacting badly to rejuvenation fakers to the point of having many public executions. There are some sets indicating that the reaction will be very common globally, in that a new ethos will evolve about damaging potential for a future in which life extension fakers will be deemed equal to murderers. So I guess maybe I take that back. What's that other old saying? Be careful what you wish for, you might just get it. Other sets within the fountain of youth frenzy, and I thought this was an interesting part of the Webbot report. And of course there's much more detail than I'm reading here. I'm just doing a summary because yes, there's a lot of stuff. I could spend 2 hours if I did the whole report. But we also seem to be obsessed with youth in our society, and so I thought this was interesting how, and you can imagine how easy this would take off if it was rumoured to be an elixir of life. That there would be lots of snake oil salesmen coming out of the woodwork. Other sets within the Fountain of Youth Frenzy sets are also tied to the health aids technology from Antarctica and the emergence of a new social phenomena or memes. These sets have memes manifesting in the form of new outpourings from the fashion minds as the younger generations begin to react to changing planetary conditions. These sets have a gaslight look, appearing within the fashions being offered as the designers, not referencing major brands, but rather street clothiers, will be providing adaptations for the changing planetary conditions. These adaptations show up as helmets and goggles for sunlight protection. Tinfoil hats, anybody? The helmet sets are showing that a schism develops within several Western populations in which women will refuse to wear protective hoods or headscarves due to religious reasons and will instead create a new form of hair-friendly helmet, anti-solar radiation hats. Other data sets have the climate reaction clothing to be a fairly large industry by mid-2018 at several spots around the planet. Some of these sets are referencing a global depression as being space creation effect, opens a power vacuum in several industries that boosts the new creators and their climate clothes. As model spaces progress through May and from about the 19th onward, there are several new linguistic sets that are both competing and cooperating. A major developing theme is indicated to be breaking out during this time, as ordinary women are being forced out by circumstance into leadership roles. These sets have obvious connections to the elections within Europe, but are primarily not focusing on the electoral side of politics, but rather the power side. These sets are in the supporting chain for the Women and Gold in Ireland pop, and for the Women Fight Back within the Scandinavia pop. These sets have the competing themes of war versus rising power shifts around ordinary women. These sets have the war meme being very powerful for a few months as competing for our attention, but model space has the ordinary women in power persisting for years. And I think this can only be a good thing. A quick note on that is that, I've found over the years, I've sat on many committees, and I've noticed that if there is an imbalance in gender, it really does lopside the committee. The best committees that I've ever sat on are those that were 3 women, 4 men, or 4 women, 3 men, something like that, but a good mix of the male-female energy is good. The war language is not restricted to fighting between countries and will include the interpopulation battles that are appearing from all around the planet with specific intensity within the Western dollar empire. From the pop war between the indigenous people and the invading migrations in Europe to the anarchist communists versus the constitutionalist street battles in USA pop, the data has contention and fighting as theme of the month for a few months over late spring and into summer, Northern Hemisphere. The acting out badly and bad behavior is showing as being dominant over the spring within the language, but is being regulated to the lower level of activity as model spaces move through August. Food space. This is another very important area. There are several differing food crops, everything from commercial grains to private fruit cultivars, that are forecast to have significant problem going forward into the next season. This is to say that the summer Northern Hemisphere is going to be rough in the sense of bad weather and major crop losses that will reach levels forecast to affect regional employment. These food crop losses sets are, in the shorter term, also gaining new support sets for bad locations relative to shifting weather patterns. There are many sets for crop losses due to failure to thrive, as well as drying out during what should be a wet season, and out of season cold and low light levels, and delayed flowering out of sync with pollinators, and many other sets for a failure to produce, at least to previous or expected levels. Many of the failures of production to meet expectation sets are directly holding insects as a supporting value set or are cross-linked over such sets. These sets are all pointing to weather impacts on the pollinator communities as being the primary cause for the food crop crash of 2017-2018. These sets are further supported by Terra entity sets for UV radiation and airborne radiation, as well as our favorite contributing factor for all things negative these days, chemtrails. The data sets are also showing chemtrails to be a contributing factor for the growth of large, new and deadly insect populations. These insect-induced fatality episodes are indicated to include at least one jet airplane indicated to crash on takeoff or landing due to volume of insects affecting its ability to fly. Okay, this is another little interesting part, the population war, and we certainly are seeing a clash of ideologies right now. And I find it kind of interesting that as the weather is polarizing, so we seem to be polarizing into far left and far right ideologies. And at least part of me is wondering if there's a little bit of a connection with those two things that are happening, and also that we're moving into a different part of space. I'll get into that in a minute. Population war. The new data sets are accruing to the pop war linguistic structure, forecasting an acceleration of the meme over these next few months as the unknown energies from space continue to ramp up the nervous sensitivity of humanity in general. Further, the data has the weather over spring and summer in the Northern Hemisphere as also contributing to the emotional and mental pressures that drive pop war. The new sets have more confrontations in USA pop between generations, though mostly the fight is not described as being generational in nature and is really an expression of deep state battles between humanists and their opposition. The USA pop theatre of pop war is indicated to be expressed as generational war, as the battles will be between young and old. The datasets are focusing on the age separation, as this will be attempted to be used as a wedge to enlarge the confrontation. While not working as expected, the mainstream propaganda media will be continuing to pimp and pump stress and disaffection. The expression of pop war across the Western dollar empire is indicated to expand to include Canada pop as of 2017. These sets have radical Islam and invading migrants as being the hot topics throughout Canada pop, as the population and the ruling government begin to collectively grapple with the invasion and seemingly distance from each other in terms of approach. The data has the Canadian officialdom being accommodating to the growing river of invading migrants who will be seen as a threat by the local population. Pop war sets for USA pop are indicating that the street battles are going to be both comic and tragic, and the engineering political tensions within the USA pop are sporadically moved to the forefront of public discussion by these street battles. In general, the street battles in the USA pop are showing up as theatre more than revolution, in spite of claims to the contrary by the instigators. There are many sets pointing toward armed confrontations. Most of these are without any robust fill levels from supporting sets of details, so at this point in processing it would appear that these will be words more than deeds. There are a number of sets for comic battles, not that the pain and blood and suffering will be real, but rather will stem from comic circumstances. In several examples, the data sets we have protesters against capitalism inadvertently crossing paths with Muslim adherents who are thinking to be protecting turf, and the hilarity will ensue. In other sets there will be some references to Jewish parents volunteering as community police and will be out busting heads of protesters only to discover their own children, grandchildren opposing them as the kids are out behaving badly. We were colonized by banks. If you were born after 1913, you were living in the colonies of an invisible dollar empire. The data sets are now showing that the employees of the dollar empire, which includes all of globalist governments, in the US faction of the dollar empire, sets have language for the breakaway pop running into the peak government phenomena, in that the dollar pipeline is forecast as failing due to peak government, in which government begins to war within itself. And I think we're already seeing this, which in turn exposes flaws in system design. And this in its turn is indicated to lead to the breakaway part of the breakaway pop. The datasets have the dynamics of popular opinion becoming aware of the faction A versus faction B of the deep state, not the breakaway pop but its parent, such as the expressions of popular opinion are going to hit the media in open and public debate about the merits of each of the hidden sides of the deep state. The data sets have the public debate causing fits and seizures within the breakaway pop as the public develops a fascination for all things breakaway and deep state. This is indicated to be especially emotionally hot around the subject of breakaway population, energy infrastructure and healing devices. Our public scrutiny sets have psychic supplements being leaked out of the breakaway pop. The data has psychic supplements as a group being made illegal by many of the governments across the planet with the general knowledge of their release. The data has illegal manufacturers springing up globally and all manner of problems resulting over the next years. These sets are cross-linked to both the Space Goats farts entity and the markets entity. The forecasts have the psychic supplements to be rumours before being substantiated by public displays that will essentially unmask the human augmentation aspects of the breakaway pop. These psychic supplements are not devices, at least as described within the data, but rather as very complex substances that will be ingested with the resulting changes to psychic ability. As first seen as merely as a casino trick, it will soon draw on people that real power can be had from these psychic boosting substances, as the corporate and intelligence worlds are indicated to come unglued at the thought of psychic spies running around. This in turn is going to lead to various new forms of work for people trying to figure out ways to stop psychic spying once it starts up. As model spaces move through 2017 and 2018, the breakaway pop sets have the general public fascination with all things breakaway pop, reaching a point of discovering that the breakaway pop uses non-metallic implants to track and record the thoughts of people within their organization. This is indicated to lead to the thought that abductees also have mind bugs planted in them. This is indicated to lead to all manner of silly behavior, including some people insistent on examination by doctors to be certain that no recording devices have been implanted. The data would have the screening be an organized effort by the US and other military lasting years. That begins with the technicians, then the doctors, then the upper military, and then on and on down the chain of command. The data shows they will find few implants not put there by them. Okay, here we come to the Canada population, and I'm going to read all of this because, of course, we are in Canada, and so this is important to us. Canada pop is indicated to have to deal with very large forest fires that will be one of the major themes of this summer, Northern Hemisphere. These sets have the connection between the fires and chemtrails to be brought up in the national discussion about the fires destroying Canadian forest lands. These sets have many people being involved in the fires, as in fleeing and being trapped and having residents destroyed. Other issues from the fires include significant illness and the loss of power, electricity, and the roads burned and towns destroyed. These sets are showing as being temporally close to lots of language about brilliant, bright, dominating sun and intense afternoon sunlight, and other language about the sun impact. There are a number of sets that have the invading migrant population within Canada pop being impacted by the fire season. These sets would have migrant population being shifted about due to the fires, as well as being blamed for them by displaced locals. Not a good situation, and some additional supporting sets have the Canadian self-image as being redefined in the ashes of the fire season. In one of these subsets are suggestions that burning bugs by the billions will be an actual flame river in the sky that will leap fire boundaries by kilometers. These sets are cross-linked over to Terra Entity chemtrail impact sets. These sets have detailed the picture being painted of the fires first scaring the bugs away from the destroyed forest in their billions. Then, as the bug rivers are in the air, the tail end is indicated to burst into flame that will be seen travelling the length of the bug river. These sets are quite bizarre sounding, but please note, no more so than our first encounter with now infamous rivers in the atmosphere. Here is a little bit on the China pop, because it talks about debt and definitely some uncertainty in China. China pop has very large growth in all data sets relating to debt and currencies and money. Many of these sets are suggesting very large disruptions in the status of China pop currency and monetary policy. Other sets for corporations having supporting sets for Chinese central authorities being under stress from the social unrest that is being expressed around the failing currencies. Several new sets are forecasting currencies distress over summer Northern Hemisphere that are indicated to spread beyond China. These sets have currencies distress as participating in the pain that will be felt as the USA pop Federal Reserve. These sets have the currencies crisis being the hot rock that will be passed around between the major global powers over this year and into early 2018. The longer term sets have a Chinese solution being offered in late 2018 that will have long legs extending out into 2045. And of course, this is one of the big concerns with the Chinese authorities is unrest in the masses. because it is such a large population, and of course unrest is contagious. Okay, Deutsche Pop, this is another interesting little section here, because there are all kinds of things going on in Germany right now. Die Wahrheit, the truth is coming. The datasets have a bulge, also described as the ball, and a collection of secrets revealed. These sets are showing a science and industry project as being the springboard for this particular truth bomb. Other truth bombs are showing as emerging due to the political shake-ups ongoing throughout Europe. The Deutsche Pop component of this populism wave has a symbolism issue coming to the public discussion, as the truth is forecast to be very damaging to elite plans. The data has a large supporting subset for political shake-up and internal political fracturing that is forecast to be temporarily coincident with the big banking derivatives problem. Read Deutsche Bank. The idea from the data sets is that political will in Deutsche Pop is weakened just at a time when backbone is required to shove the powers that be agenda ahead in spite of building adverse circumstances. The banking derivatives problems are indicated to grow over May in Germany, to the point that failures of commercial enterprises become a government concern in early summer. It is as model spaces progress through August that the larger amount of data fills supporting sets for Deutsche Pop financial hysteria from the population. These sets have hyperinflation as primary supporting subsets. The hyperinflation language is indicated to become a dominating discussion in Deutsche Pop from that point onward in 2017. And I might remind you that it was hyperinflation that preceded the Second World War. So this is not a good thing to have. It's not a good thing to have happen anywhere. Hyperinflation means that your currency is just totally out of control. South America Pop. Now South America Pop, as you probably know, is in turmoil. Brazil, Argentina and Venezuela are just coming apart at the seams, and it looks like this is really going to push Bitcoin into the forefront, and I see it is at the present moment riding at 1,300, and I think it was $69 last time I checked. And but you know, carrying Bitcoin around, you can carry very small amounts of Bitcoin around that can be transferred electronically from phone to phone, which really cuts down on the risk of being robbed. South America Pop is also gaining new sets for Bitcoin and Computer Center and Rebuild and Power Center. There are sets for a new power generation facility that is forecast to be the proximate cause for Bitcoin mining growth in this region. The geographic references would seem to be pointing to the Three Corners area in the south. The data suggests that money politics in the local region are going to be settled as Bitcoin becomes local currency due to cheap electrics miners. USA population, lots going on in the USA, of course, as we can see. Within the USA Pop entity are labeling sets that are forecasting some largest changes in language over the next few years. The labeling sets include forecasts for a very large chunk of modern vocabulary, as the PC culture, this is the politically correct culture, will be relabeled or identified as regressive. These sets accrue to model space concurrent with the resurgence of the street battles in USA Pop, as the politically correct culture attempts to incite violent reaction. Whilst the media whores will be shouting generations at war, the reality of the manifestation of violence in the USA Pop is not between generations and is showing up within the data sets as yet another instance of the continuing battle of ideas minds, only in this instance most of the minds are a little closer to the mental framework continuum to batshit crazy than normal. The data has forecasts of increasing violence within the USA Pop across 2017, but noting that sun disease is playing a role. The episodic nature of the violence outbursts becomes somewhat more understandable. These sets within USA Pop for the Violence and Rebellion are specifically focused on staged rebellion. We also need to note that the definition for rebellion is that it is based on the desire to replace the leadership. This is specifically not a revolution in which the idea is to overturn the governing system or replace it with something else. The sets for rebellion have been in place and growing for a number of years. That people want to replace the people governing, not the governing system. Because I think this governing system is not as bad as all that. It just has a few really big problems that need to be dealt with, and they are pretty much at the top. The data sets have the USA Pop within the Southwest as coming under severe, otherworldly weather. These sets have the weather being described as a chaotic mix in which snow, hail, extreme winds, and atmospheric rivers and lakes, all of which are showing as dumping weather for long days over the south. The data sets have the southeast facing record spring storms as well as flooding at levels not previously recorded. These record-breaking weather systems are within the supporting sets for the inland seas filling up. The data has the propaganda machine, aka the mainstream media, as eating bad data and puking it all over its followers. Then it reads stuff about itself and pukes up some more. These sets have the mainstream corporation media being devastated by geopolitical events, just as the wave of unemployment is indicated to roll through the media empires as revenues crash, and we're already seeing that. These sets are also reflecting language around the crashing of revenues for business in general here in the USA Pop, with the obvious references to the online advertising boycott taking its toll on reported revenues. Note that the data is forecasting that the advertising flow rates will be drastically different as cash flows for the advertisers is hit hard by curtailment and constraints in spending due to crashing revenues and credit tightening. Our new data sets have media wars within USA Pop Western Dollar Empire to be escalating over late spring through summer with mudslinging. That will include truth about the media, both MSN, propaganda press, and the alt media world. The data has spies in both camps, as well as transforming events transpiring over early summer that will be causing problems for the legacy media, as events and relationships will be seen to come undone. The undone sets also include the idea of chairs knocked over as in reaction to the surprise of the event. These sets are further including the ideas of famous faces that go ashen and pale, and with even an episode 2 of fainting on the air. These extreme emotional sums for the water sets are at the top of the range. This means that 1. We will increase our range of potentials for each of the pertinent emotional categories within the multiple dimensional array of values, and 2. That we are likely headed for some form of event that will affect a very large number of people. This last is brought up as a direct result of our forecasting the 9/11 attack, albeit in a wonky fashion, and then in 2001 observing and noting the emotional impacts on the population's language use, then adapting conclusions from those observations to this work. The emotional levels are now affecting water sets within the USA Pop in their emotional array profile are very similar to instances when we have been able to capture with this work in its recent and distant past. Stated in another fashion, just to make the point, we have seen stuff like this before, and it's not going to be good. These extremely emotionally charged water-focused sets have some interesting subsets that include references to areas all along the west coast of the USA. That includes specifically parts of British Columbia, specifically Vancouver Island, and some inland areas of BC. The shock of that ground releasing water or tremors come through the water sets have a Malibu to Malibu explicit range. This is to say that we have sets referencing Malibu BC and Malibu CA as being directly impacted by this series of events. First we have tremors, with the obvious earthquake implication. Then we have the water and waters and flooding sets that are going to be the idea of water and not a drop to drink or to wash with. These sets would seem to be describing first an earthquake in the midst of a pounding rainstorm, and then also so much water as to lay it over 9 feet of land, with this interpretation of basically 9 feet of standing water on the land when the rains stop rushing. These sets are suggesting that the totality of the range of impacts reaches from Malibu, BC, Canada, well into the tip of the Baja Peninsula in Mexico. The larger areas for population impact include California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Idaho, and to a lesser extent Arizona and New Mexico. These sets are not showing a giant earthquake. Repeat, no giant earthquake. There are new sets of the upending of the power relationships within both USA pop, ruling elite, and the global elites. These sets are showing that truth bombs will be released against each other as the various factions become embroiled in battle. These sets describe truth battles as the deep state becomes both a weapon and a target within the open battles within politics. The data sets have elites becoming open targets themselves within the truth battles, and the unseen and unacknowledged war continues. This raging truth battle is indicated to start up in midsummer Northern Hemisphere and to continue with varying intensity through to summer 2018. The data sets have the truth war being both absurd and comical at times, as the elites are seen lobbing dirt at each other from behind mud walls. What does it say? People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones? Good proverb. Okay, this is from Metal Space. The slippery dynamics set within the market's entity are in supporting positions for the silver breaks out from under suppression, as well as gold suppression failure. This last linguistic structure has a single incident of gold suppression failure to be very globally unnerving to the financial debt markets. These sets have a crisis occurring within currencies as a result of the gold suppression failure. Now this is interesting because one of the things that they have hidden the true inflationary impact of printing of money is by creating a paper market called the SLV and the GLD for gold and silver. And there is now between 150 and 250 paper ounces of gold and silver for every real ounce of gold and silver that is out there. So this has hidden the damaging and inflationary effect on your purchasing power for years. So if this comes undone, this will be very interesting. Okay, this is very interesting too, and it's again about the sun. There are new sets within the broader sun disease linguistic structures that forecast a larger response to the sun disease as being human disease. More mental aberrations than physical symptoms, but there are going to be quite a few physical effects reported as well. The physical effects range from sunburns of very deep and scarring levels in only a few brief minutes to problems with heat levels, including fainting. Other sets have blindness and colour wash being reported. The colour wash is going to be reported, likely with different words, as colour, as in landscape disappearing. These effects are also forecast to be causing problems such as car crashes and airplane landing issues. This latter is also showing as including aircraft carriers, where the intensity of the sun disease will be responsible for a number of crashes to be reported over the next few years. The broader sun disease effects include irritability, anger, sense of being driven, and other language can be thought of as losing mental control due to perception of body processes. These sets are also tied to expressions of sexual excess, and there are supporting sets for some people to react as though in cosmic sexual flush. Others are showing us having just the opposite reaction, and are forecast to be accepting to create abstention societies over the next few years. Yet more reactions will include a much higher level of general tension, such as even small disagreements can quickly escalate beyond the control of those involved. And we have to be very careful of this. There are already lots of things going on, and I am certainly seeing people that do seem to be on much more of a hair trigger and willing to jump to the wrong conclusion. And so do be very careful what you say and how you say it. All of the planets, including Earth, are also being bombarded with increasing radiation from space, not from the Sun nor from solar plasma, but rather directly from the interstellar mediums through which we move, are coming new energies that are impacting Earth and humanity. We can actually see the grosser form of the increased radiation from interstellar space in the form of vast areas of very high clouds caused by gamma radiation, which is much higher than in the past. Well, at least we could observe these signs of new energies from space, that is, if it were not for a constant layer of chemtrails being sprayed into the atmosphere. These new and unknown, not ever experienced by modern humans, energies from space are going to be causing quite a few problems here on Earth, not only with the increased gamma radiation exposure, but also through seismic activities increasing, as well as blackouts of electrical systems and many other stranger effects, some of which have been discussed in this report. One of these stranger effects is being currently witnessed in the New Age communities, where these energies are being touted as a proximate cause for ascension. While a bit vague as to exactly what ascension may entail, the mechanics of it are being put down to a solar burst. The expectation is being maintained that this ascending solar burst is due within these next 6 to 8 years. While somewhat vague, there are still many details offered for ascension and its impacts, including numeracy from supposed higher sources about exactly how many humans can expect to ascend. The numbers vary, but in general are quoted as less than 1 million. The ascension is also described in the New Age cosmology of the aspects of these energies from space as somehow splitting all of reality into two nearly exact copies, such that the ascended will find themselves on a sparsely inhabited planet, whilst the rest of us do not qualify for this process will be relatively undisturbed here on our lower density Earth, excepting that there will be a sudden disappearance of those who are able to ascend by virtue or work or connections or bribery or some unspecified selection criteria. While the New Age ascension story sounds a lot like the supposed rapture, including an explanation for the rest of us as a left-behind backstory, the fact that this meme exists and is coincident with the shift into this new region of the interstellar medium should not be minimized. The ascension story appearance is itself a significant temporal marker. Okay, that was this month's WebBot summary. I hope you enjoyed it and you got something for it. And as I say, it is a monster 38 pages. I said 35, I believe it's actually 38 pages long. And go to Half Past Human, as I say, I will link it below, and purchase this for yourself. It is $15, $20 Canadian, and you will find it is worth every penny. And you know, one of the other things that Clif offers on this website is if you don't like it, you can return it and your money will be refunded in full. Okay, you cannot get better than that. And if you're like me, you will soon eagerly await the WebBot report every month. Okay, so I thank you very much, and please subscribe and like below, and please donate to the channel. Again, I will soon be getting my Patreon account up and running, where you can actually support me financially, which goes to help to buy new equipment and to bring you more in-depth study on what is going on around the world today. Okay, so thank you very much, and you have a great afternoon. This is Hound Dog Steve, signing off.